1. When they shut the door, they showed you the way out of a room you'd outgrown. Sometimes rejection isn't about pushing you down, it's about pulling you forward. Every time you hear no, it's life clearing a path. That closed door is proof you were never meant to stay stuck in a space that couldn't contain your potential. Don't waste time banging on what's locked behind you. Step into the hallway where your real purpose is waiting. 2. You didn't lose, you got redirected to something bigger than you imagined. Rejection is never just about loss. It's a pivot. It's a cosmic reroute to something your comfort zone could never deliver. You thought you were being denied, but you were actually being upgraded. Every setback, every dismissal, every overlooked moment is a redirection toward the life you were built for. 3. They didn't see your value because your vision was too big for their view. Don't shrink to fit into spaces that can't recognize your worth. If they couldn't appreciate you, it doesn't mean you're lacking, it means your destiny is too expansive for their limited perspective. Rejection doesn't diminish your value. It exposes where you don't belong so you can find where you do. 4. Closed doors build stronger character than open ones ever could. Anybody can walk through an open door, but it takes strength to face a locked one and decide you'll build your own entrance. Rejection demands resilience. It teaches you discipline. It gives you the character you'll need to sustain success when you finally step into your calling. 5. Rejection is a signpost, not a sentence. Too many people treat rejection like it's the end of the story. It's not. It's just a sign pointing you to a different route. When life says no, it's often saying, not here, not yet, or there's something better. Don't confuse a detour with defeat. Rejection is only a sentence if you stop reading. Keep turning the page. 1. They didn't see your value because your vision was too big for their view. There are moments in life when you feel invisible, not because you lack presence or potential, but because the people around you are wearing lenses too small to grasp what you're made of. They overlook you. They pass you by. They leave your name off the list, not because you didn't qualify, but because you didn't fit the mold. And what's often missed in those moments is this: their inability to see your value has nothing to do with your worth and everything to do with the limits of their vision. Vision has a range. Some people can only see what's right in front of them, what's predictable, comfortable, or familiar. And when you carry a vision that's bigger than that, when you're built for something extraordinary, it threatens their frame of reference. It confuses their logic. It exceeds their expectations. So instead of celebrating you, they sideline you. Instead of recognizing your power, they reject you. But rejection is often less about your inadequacy and more about their incapacity. It's easy to internalize that kind of rejection, to start believing that maybe you're too much or not enough, that maybe you should dilute your dream just to fit in, that maybe if you just toned it down, they'd finally let you in the room. But here's the truth: shrinking your dream to fit someone else's comfort zone is not humility, it's self-sabotage. You weren't made to be manageable. You were made to be massive. And sometimes the only way to discover your full potential is to be misjudged, misunderstood, and miscategorized by people who simply don't have the bandwidth to see who you really are. There's a difference between being unseen and being unworthy. Just because they didn't call your name doesn't mean you weren't destined for greatness. Some of the most powerful people on the planet started off being ignored. They didn't fit into the safe, expected categories. Their greatness was wrapped in unfamiliar packaging. They didn't look the part, talk the part, or move the part because they were never meant to play the part. They were meant to redefine it. Rejection has a way of refining your identity. It forces you to ask the hard questions. Who am I when they don't clap? Who am I when the spotlight never swings my way? Who am I when my value isn't validated by the people I looked up to? And the answer to those questions is where your real confidence is forged. Because real confidence is not built on applause, it's built on conviction. On knowing what you carry, even when nobody else does. On believing in your calling, even when they call you crazy. On standing your ground, even when the world walks past you. The truth is, your vision might be too disruptive for small spaces. People can only project onto you what they understand about themselves. If they've never dared to dream big, they'll call your dream impossible. If they've never fought to become more, they'll label your hunger as arrogance. If they've never broken through a ceiling, they'll try to trap you under one. You can't take it personally. You weren't born to live inside the lines they drew. You were born to redraw them. You were never supposed to be everybody's choice. Your purpose isn't a popularity contest. Being passed over is painful, but it's also powerful. Because in those moments you discover something deeper than validation. You discover your voice, the one that speaks even when no one's listening, the one that moves even when the crowd stays still, the one that reminds you of your assignment when discouragement tries to make you forget. That voice, your inner resolves, what turns rejection into redirection. If you've ever been skipped, ignored, or dismissed, understand this. It's not a verdict. It's a filter. Life is filtering out the spaces that can't contain you, the people that can't carry you, the opportunities that aren't worthy of your gift. Rejection is not the end of your story, it's the edit. It's cutting out the parts that don't align with your future. Don't fight to hold on to what can't hold you. Don't beg for approval from people who were never equipped to recognize your brilliance. Your value isn't up for negotiation. It's not waiting for someone to see it before it becomes real. It's not dependent on their opinion, position, or perception. Your value existed before they met you, before they ignored you, before they rejected you. Their inability to recognize it doesn't make it disappear. It just means it's time to find new soil. See, soil matters. You can have the most powerful seed, but if you plant it in dry ground, it'll never grow. Some environments aren't designed to nurture your vision. Some people aren't meant to water your dream. They can't see your potential because their perspective is limited by fear, insecurity, or tradition. And that's okay. It's not your job to change their mind. It's your job to change your environment. When they reject you, don't retreat, reposition. Step into rooms where your presence isn't just tolerated but needed. Surround yourself with people who don't just see your gift but challenge it, sharpen it, and stretch it. Go where your vision is valued, not viewed as a threat. You don't need everyone to understand you. You just need the right ones to recognize you. There's a strange kind of blessing in being overlooked. It keeps you grounded. It keeps you hungry. It gives you a reason to build when no one's watching, to prepare when no one's clapping, to sharpen your skills in silence. Because when the time comes, and it will, you won't just arrive with a dream, you'll arrive with discipline. You'll walk in not needing their platform because you've already built your foundation. And when the spotlight finally finds you, you'll be ready not just to perform but to lead, to inspire, to last. Let them misjudge you. Let them underestimate you. Let them walk past you. That rejection is revealing what you carry. It's showing you just how different you are. You weren't made for the shallow end. You were built for the deep. And sometimes, rejection is the only thing strong enough to push you off the shore and into the waters where your real strength begins to rise. Your dream is not too big. Their view is too small. Stop explaining yourself to people who aren't even equipped to understand you. Stop handing over your vision for validation. Stop giving access to those who only come to audit your calling. You don't need their confirmation, you need your commitment. You don't need their applause, you need your alignment. And here's the beauty of it all. The very people who rejected you will one day revisit what they dismissed. They'll look back and realize they missed something valuable, something rare. But by then you won't be waiting at their door. You'll be walking through doors they can't even approach. You'll be leading in spaces they never imagined you'd enter. You'll be thriving in a calling that was too big for their comfort but just right for your destiny. Every visionary has faced rejection. Every dreamer has dealt with doubt. Every trailblazer has been misunderstood. That's the price of carrying something the world hasn't seen yet. You're not too much, you're just ahead of your time. And they don't see it because they're not supposed to. Not yet. That's not your problem. That's their limitation. What matters now is what you choose to do with the rejection. Will you let it define you? Or will you let it refine you? Will you let it shrink you? Or will you let it strengthen you? Will you bury your dream to fit in? Or will you rise up and build it anyway? The greatest movements, the greatest breakthroughs, the greatest inventions and revolutions weren't birthed in rooms full of cheerleaders. They were born in silence, in struggle, in solitude. They were sparked in moments when someone dared to believe that rejection wasn't a stop sign, it was a spark. That it wasn't proof they were unqualified, it was proof they were uncontainable. So if you're carrying a dream that feels too heavy, too different, too unrealistic, understand that you're in good company. Not because you're following in anyone's footsteps, but because you're making your own. Rejection is direction in disguise. It's rerouting you to destiny. It's positioning you for purpose. It's teaching you how to depend on something deeper than popularity, how to anchor yourself in persistence, in purpose, in passion. You didn't get passed over because you're unworthy. You got passed over because they couldn't carry what you carry. You didn't fit in because you're designed to stand out. You didn't get chosen because your assignment is bigger than their capacity. Don't take it personal, take it as preparation. Because what they didn't see in you is exactly what the world is waiting to see through you. They didn't see your value because your vision was too big for their view. And that's the best news you could have ever received. 2. Keep building what they can't comprehend. When you start to understand that rejection is a reflection of their limitations and not your inadequacy, you stop begging for entry into spaces that were never built for you. You stop offering your worth up for negotiation. You stop searching for a seat at a table you were born to replace. Because sometimes you weren't overlooked, you were preserved. You weren't dismissed, you were diverted. You weren't ignored, you were insulated from places that would have stunted your growth. It takes a strong mind to accept that not every environment deserves your energy. Not every critic deserves your attention. Not every platform deserves your presence. And not every opportunity that looked good from the outside was good for your purpose. There is a deep power in knowing that you can walk away from anything that doesn't align with your vision, even if it means walking alone, because alone is where clarity lives. Alone is where the noise stops and the real strategy begins. Alone is where you finally hear the voice that matters most, the voice inside that knows exactly who you are. You don't have to dilute your dream just because it intimidates people who think small. You don't have to edit your ambition so it fits inside the expectations of those who settled for less. You don't have to apologize for your urgency, your intensity, your drive. Some people will always see that as a threat. They'll call it arrogance because they don't recognize confidence. They'll call it entitlement because they can't relate to vision. They'll call it unrealistic because they've made peace with mediocrity. And that's not your burden to carry. You weren't designed to be understood by everyone. Your assignment isn't a public service announcement. Your calling isn't a committee decision. Your dream doesn't need to be voted on before it can become real. You've been entrusted with something sacred, something singular, something so significant that not everyone will recognize it at first glance. And that's okay. Let them underestimate you. Let them measure you with shallow criteria. Let them dismiss you with casual indifference. Because when you finally emerge, when you finally manifest the vision that's been burning in your spirit, it will be undeniable. Rejection gives you the space to evolve without interference. While they're busy dismissing you, you're building discipline. While they're ignoring you, you're gaining insight. While they're minimizing you, you're maximizing your preparation. Their lack of recognition is your freedom to develop in peace, to practice without scrutiny, to fail without spectacle, to grow without premature exposure. Rejection, in its own way, is a protective barrier that keeps you from releasing your gift before it's mature enough to withstand the weight of success. Because there's a difference between being seen and being ready. If you had been accepted prematurely, you might have performed instead of prepared. You might have settled into shallow validation instead of building deep conviction. You might have compromised your standards to stay included. Rejection spares you that fate. It forces you to rely on something more substantial than applause. It teaches you how to be faithful in obscurity, how to believe in yourself without consensus, how to persist when no one is watching. This is why some of the greatest legacies started in hidden places. Not in front of crowds, but in quiet corners. Not on big stages, but in small rooms. Not in the center of recognition, but on the edges of insignificance. And it was in those overlooked places that character was forged, that resilience was born, that purpose was refined. You are in that same process now. If you feel rejected, take heart. You are not being buried. You are being planted. Planting feels like burial because it happens underground. It looks like darkness, isolation, and pressure. But underground is where roots grow, where strength develops, where the seed becomes unshakable. When you finally break through the surface, you won't be fragile. You won't be hollow. You'll be rooted in something deeper than approval. You'll be grounded in your own unwavering belief. When they don't see your value, it's not an invitation to question yourself. It's an invitation to fortify yourself, to get so secure in who you are and what you carry that their recognition becomes a bonus, not a necessity. To build the kind of inner infrastructure that doesn't collapse the moment someone doubts you. To cultivate the mindset that says, even if no one claps, I will still rise. There is a hidden advantage in being underestimated. You get to build without interference. You get to prepare without pressure. You get to surprise the world when you show up fully formed, fully equipped, fully aware of what you bring. You get to bypass the noise and focus on what matters most, becoming the person capable of sustaining the destiny you desire. Understand that your vision is too big to be confined by casual opinions. It is too rare to be measured by common metrics. It is too significant to be subjected to small-minded evaluations. You can't expect everyone to comprehend something they've never seen before. Your dream is pioneering territory they've never traveled. Of course it looks unfamiliar. Of course it sounds ambitious. Of course it seems excessive. That's because it is. And that's exactly why you were chosen to carry it. If you keep trying to make your vision palatable to people with no appetite for greatness, you will starve your potential. If you keep waiting for them to validate you before you take action, you will never move. If you keep expecting them to applaud what they can't even conceptualize, you will remain stagnant. Your dream deserves more than that. Your destiny requires more than that. And your purpose is bigger than their perception. Rejection is often the universe rerouting you toward the people who are assigned to help you grow. There are communities, mentors, and partnerships waiting for you that will not just accept your vision, they will accelerate it. They will see you without you having to prove yourself. They will invest in you without you having to audition. They will believe in you without needing to be convinced. But you can't reach them if you keep circling the same places that never valued you. Stop revisiting closed doors out of habit. Stop knocking on walls that were never meant to become windows. Stop shrinking yourself to fit spaces that were never built to hold your brilliance. Every time you dilute your vision to make someone else comfortable, you betray the part of you that was born to be great. Every time you downplay your gift to avoid intimidating small minds, you dishonor the potential that's been entrusted to you. Your vision doesn't need to be resized. It needs to be released. It needs to be pursued with the same audacity that conceived it. It needs to be protected from the critics who can't see it and the cynics who can't stand it. And it needs to be expressed without apology. Because the moment you start apologizing for your dream is the moment you start compromising it. You weren't created to fit in. You were created to redefine what's possible. You were created to expand the boundaries of what's been done before. You were created to set new standards, to break old molds, to create something so powerful that it leaves a legacy. And sometimes in order to build that, you have to be willing to stand alone. Standing alone doesn't mean you're isolated, it means you're consecrated. Set apart for something specific, set apart for something significant, set apart for something sacred. That's why you don't fit everywhere. That's why you don't blend in. That's why you can't settle into spaces that feel safe but stagnant, because you are called to something higher, and higher always costs more. Higher costs you the comfort of consensus, higher costs you the ease of acceptance, higher costs you the privilege of universal approval, but it also rewards you with impact, influence, and the kind of fulfillment that only comes from honoring your purpose without compromise. You don't need their permission to be powerful. You don't need their blessing to be bold. You don't need their support to start. All you need is the courage to trust the vision you've been given. All you need is the conviction to keep building even when it feels like no one is watching. All you need is the resilience to rise every time you get overlooked. There will come a day when the very people who dismissed you will study you. When the same voices that called you unrealistic will call you unstoppable. When the same circles that rejected you will try to claim you. But by then, you will be so anchored in who you are that their recognition will be irrelevant. Because you didn't build for their applause, you built for your assignment. Keep building what they can't comprehend. Keep pursuing what they can't perceive. Keep becoming what they can't predict. Because when you finally emerge, it won't just be a moment, it will be a movement. A testament to what happens when someone refuses to shrink, refuses to settle, refuses to surrender their vision just because others couldn't see it. Your vision is too big to be caged by conventional thinking. It's too essential to be confined by temporary rejection. It's too urgent to be delayed by other people's disbelief. You are carrying something the world needs if the world doesn't know it yet. And it's your responsibility to honor that calling, even when it costs you approval, comfort, and certainty. Keep building, not because they believe, but because you do. Keep building, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. Keep building, not because they clap, but because your purpose demands it. And in the end, you'll realize that rejection wasn't a curse, it was a compass pointing you exactly where you were meant to go. 3. Your rejection was the start of your redirection. Rejection is never random. It doesn't happen just to punish you or embarrass you or convince you that you are somehow unworthy. Rejection is a divine realignment that pulls you away from what was never meant to sustain you and propels you toward what will elevate you. Most people get caught up in the sting of it. They replay the moment they were told no. They rehearse the words that cut into their confidence. They internalize the disapproval of others as proof that they are not qualified. But rejection, when you really look at it closely, is the moment life does you a favor. It clears the path. It makes sure you don't waste your destiny on something that can't hold the weight of your purpose. Too many dreams have died in the graveyard of approval seeking. Too many callings have been buried beneath the fear of being misunderstood. If you spend your life needing someone else to validate your assignment before you start walking in it, you will never move. You will sit on the sidelines of your own purpose, waiting for a committee of people who do not share your vision to give you permission to act. That is a slow death. That is a betrayal of the very fire you've been entrusted to carry. You have to understand that the people who rejected you were often operating from their own limitations, their own insecurities, their own scarcity. When you showed up with big dreams and unstoppable drive, it threatened the comfort of their small thinking. They saw you and immediately began to compare you to what they believe is possible for themselves, and because they couldn't see it in their own lives, they decided it couldn't be possible in yours either. That's not discernment. That's projection. And if you allow someone else's projections to define your potential, you will never rise above their limitations. Rejection requires that you become clear about who you are. It forces you to get honest about what you believe about yourself. If you crumble every time you hear no, then you were never rooted in your own sense of worth. You were still renting your confidence from other people's acceptance. You were still outsourcing your validation to external applause. But when you finally get tired of living in that fragile place, rejection becomes your greatest teacher. It shows you that the most important endorsement is the one you give yourself. It teaches you how to clap for yourself in empty rooms, how to trust your voice in silent seasons, how to keep showing up with excellence even when no one is acknowledging your effort. That's the real test. Not whether you can perform when everyone is watching, but whether you can prepare when no one is, whether you can keep refining your gift in the shadows, whether you can stay faithful in the fields that nobody wants to visit. Because if you can be consistent in obscurity, you will be unstoppable in visibility. But if you only work when you feel seen, you will never last when the spotlight shifts. Rejection is the pruning that happens before the harvest. It cuts away the false attachments and shallow alliances that would have drained you later. You don't need everyone to like you. You don't need everyone to support you. You don't need everyone to agree with you. You need to be so grounded in your purpose that you don't flinch when someone else can't see it. You need to be so committed to your calling that you don't retreat when someone questions it. You need to be so certain of your value that you don't shrink to make insecure people feel comfortable. There is power in not being chosen. Because when you are not chosen by them, you are free to choose yourself. You are free to build something they will never be able to diminish because they had no part in creating it. You are free to pursue the ideas they called unrealistic. You are free to write the vision they said was too ambitious. You are free to design a life that answers to your purpose, not their preferences. That freedom is priceless. That freedom is what fuels the most significant breakthroughs. And it only becomes available when you stop seeing rejection as a verdict and start seeing it as a redirection. Your path was never supposed to look like anyone else's, his essence. That's why it feels lonely sometimes. That's why you can't copy someone else's blueprint. That's why you can't look to someone else's timeline to determine if you're on track. What you've been called to build is so specific, so original, so uniquely tailored to your strengths that comparison will only distort your progress. Rejection often comes when you're trying to force yourself into molds you were never designed to fit. When you let go of the pressure to belong everywhere, you finally create the space to become who you were always meant to be. Don't resent the closed doors. Don't resent the unanswered calls. Don't resent the invitations that never arrived. Each one of those moments was a turning point. Each one of them spared you from misalignment. Each one of them was protecting you from settling for something that would have shrunk you. You have to trust that your journey is unfolding exactly as it should, that the timing is precise, that the lessons are essential, that the delays are strategic. When you start to see rejection through that lens, you stop fighting it and you start thanking it. Some of the most successful people you admire were rejected over and over again. They were told they weren't good enough, that their ideas would never work, that their contributions weren't needed. But they didn't internalize those opinions as fact. They didn't surrender to those verdicts. They didn't abandon their dreams to appease the critics. They used the rejection as fuel. They let it sharpen their focus. They let it deepen their resolve. They let it refine their strategy. And when the opportunity finally arrived, they were ready to meet it with the strength and clarity that only comes from having been underestimated. When you look back at your own story, you'll see that the seasons that felt most painful were the ones that built you the most. That every no fortified your discipline. That every setback strengthened your resilience. That every closed door forced you to innovate. If you had been accepted too early, you might have settled. You might have compromised. You might have watered down your purpose to stay included. Rejection protected you from that fate. It made sure you didn't become a version of yourself that could survive in their rooms but never thrive in your calling. It's time to release the bitterness. It's time to stop replaying the rejection in your mind. It's time to stop interpreting someone else's inability to see your value as proof that you don't have any. What they failed to recognize is irrelevant to your destiny. Your purpose does not require their permission. Your vision does not require their validation. You have everything you need already inside you. The discipline, the creativity, the ingenuity, the drive. Rejection didn't take any of that away, simply redirected you to the place where those qualities could flourish. When you finally embrace this perspective, you stop being offended by closed doors. You stop begging to be let back into spaces that never honored you. You stop trying to convince people to choose you. You start to understand that the door you were knocking on was too small, that the room you were trying to enter didn't have the capacity to hold the magnitude of what you carry. And you start walking toward the places where your gifts will not just be tolerated but celebrated. You have to be willing to release the need to be liked by everyone. You have to be willing to accept that some people will never understand your mission. You have to be willing to keep showing up fully even when you feel unseen. Because your commitment is not to their applause, it's to your purpose. Your loyalty is not to their opinions, it's to your assignment. Your devotion is not to their acceptance, it's to your vision. Rejection builds an unshakable confidence. Because once you've survived the pain of not being chosen, you realize you don't need external validation to keep moving. You don't need everyone's approval to keep building. You don't need constant reassurance to keep believing. You become self-sufficient in your belief. You become self-sustaining in your effort. You become unstoppable in your pursuit. This is the season to reframe everything you thought was a setback, to look at every closed door as a redirection to something better, to see every no as protection from premature exposure, to see every disappointment as preparation for greater impact, because you were never meant to settle for average. You were never meant to conform to the limitations of small thinkers. You were never meant to shrink so that others wouldn't feel insecure around your greatness. Your vision is too important to be delayed by rejection. Your purpose is too significant to be diminished by other people's opinions. Your calling is too urgent to be deferred by closed doors. You have to decide that your commitment to your mission is stronger than your desire to be accepted. You have to decide that your devotion to your purpose is greater than your fear of being misunderstood. You have to decide that your love for what you're building is deeper than your need for validation. When you finally make that decision, you become free. Free to create without compromise. Free to innovate without apology. Free to move forward without hesitation. Because you know that rejection isn't the end, it's the beginning. The beginning of your realignment. The beginning of your evolution. The beginning of your rise. Ask ChatGPT.